Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight, and my guest tonight is writer and filmmaker Travis Laidlaw. How's it going, Travis?
Good, man. Thanks for having me, Robin.
No,
and, thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I loved going onto that YouTube channel Alter because they show a lot of cool horror film shorts, and there's some that are not that good either, but I watch them all, to see what I like. And when I was on the Alter YouTube channel, I bumped into your short, The Trunk. Oh my gosh, dude, that was a creepy short horror film. It gave me the goosebumps on my arms, and it kept me and no lie, it kept me the edge of my seat.
That's so awesome to hear, man. Well, that's why we made it, right?
Yeah. So how'd you come up with The Trunk?
Well, I think like a lot of filmmakers in the last couple of years, we found ourselves with a lot of time at home during the pandemic. And, I've said this a few times now, but the trunk in the trunk is an old family heirloom. I mean, it's something that I've had in my place, but it was I think it was my great grandfather's or something like that. And it lived in an attic in the old family cottage somewhere for 40 years. And anyways, it made its way to me. I think I stole it from my parents' house when I was younger. And so I'm always looking at it. And right now, I mean, it just kind of holds my cables and stuff. But I've always been staring at that thing man, this is a big, old-looking, creepy trunk. I got to make something with this one day. And, sitting at home during the pandemic, it was okay, can I make a pandemic film? Can I make something with 5 people in my house with this trunk? I think I could do it. So that's how it started. Yeah. And that's where it began.
Yeah. Like that saying, curiosity kills the cat. And after I watched the film, I want to be sure I never look at anybody else's trunks at their house. I don't care if it's a family heirloom. I'll look at it, but I don't want to go in there because you just don't know what's in it.
Yeah. Or, for sure, just don't remove the chains.
Exactly. I also love the scene where the lock popped up a little bit and how you had the blood oozing out of the trunk like that. How'd you do that?
Yeah, so that in the kind of the nightmare scene.
Yeah.
That was my son inside the trunk with a turkey baster full of fake blood, and he was just crunched in there because he can't really fit. He could fit. He's 17, small guy, but just squeezing the blood out through the hole.
That's pretty wild. And then let's talk about Ashley Morrison, who's is one of the main characters in the film. She did a solid performance. How'd you get her for the film? Was she your idea to have, or did you go through other actresses before you decided to do Ashley?
Yeah, I didn't write it for her, but pretty soon into pre-production, what did I see? I had worked with her in the past. I helped produce a friend's short years ago that she starred in, and I was really impressed with her at that time. And sort of following her career, and she was in some stuff on TV. Right before she did an episode of Eli Roth's Haunted Museum. Okay. And really great performance and everything. And I was like, oh yeah, she's the perfect age now. She's a young teenager, a middle-aged teenager. And I was like, man, she would actually be perfect for this. So I reached directly out to her and she jumped on board. So no casting process or anything for that role. Yeah,
that's pretty good. And I love how it started off. It was her and her father, I believe, right? It was a father, yes. Father and daughter. Yeah. And they find the trunk, and the father's like, no, we're not going to mess with it, So, you know how young teenagers are. She just waits for her dad to fall asleep, so she decides to go check this out herself because, you can feel what she's feeling because she really wants to know what's in that trunk. And I love how you did the cinematography shots, like filming it dark in the scenes, but I like how you added like bright colors to it, especially, her orange shirt where it kind of added the blend to it, which made it kind of creepy.
Yeah. I mean, that was there was a conscious awareness of that we were going to be shooting in a lot of low light, and we didn't have. I mean, we were shooting on a tiny budget and everything, so we didn't have a ton of lighting at our disposal. Mm-hmm. So I definitely wanted to have some high contrast elements in there that just added some lightness to the character. And I mean, I was trying to sort of set the film somewhat out of time, not necessarily. It could be modern, but it's not necessarily modern. It could be from the 90s. I had the VCR in there. Tried to design her wardrobe to be a little bit retro, and I just kind of like floating around in the not too specific time zones. I kind of like that.
I did too. I kind of liked the vibe feeling of it too. And how'd you make the creature? Like the mask, the arms. That was pretty creepy. Yeah.
So our special effects makeup person, Rhonda Costin, she's fantastic. So she had also, I hadn't worked with her before, but I knew of her and I'd seen a bunch of stuff that she had done with some acquaintances' films, and same thing. Early on, I knew I wanted to have some big special effects makeup stuff, because I wanted to see some stuff. A lot of the films I've done in the past, I'm really trying to stretch minimal budget for maximum effect, and sometimes that ends up being a lot of like silhouetted figures in the background. I was like, this time I really want to see something. I want to make up a witch character. I want to have some gore. So that was an early decision to get her on board, and she killed it. Some of that makeup stuff. I mean, the dad character, his facial stuff, that was all prosthetics, and that I think he was in makeup for like 6 hours. The witch was like all day long. We had to do her in stages. So like we did her hand first, and then shot those hand shots, and then she would go back in and do the face and the rest of the stuff. And yeah, it was. I think she was like 8 hours, 9 hours probably total that day in makeup on and off.
I bet she had fun sitting in that trunk though too.
Yeah, well, I mean, so another thing with the trunk is it's pretty big, but it's not quite big enough to convincingly have someone like lower in it and come out without it looking like they're bending. Yeah. So I did a lot of green screen work. So I shot her on green screen, holding on to the edges and whatnot. I just sort of shot plates of the trunk and comped her in. So all that stuff of people going in or sitting in it's actually not in the trunk.
Yeah, and I love when she when the daughter finally first comes to it, opens it up, and then all of a sudden you see her getting sucked in. You're like, shit, what's going on? Is she gonna come back or this done? And then
yeah, a lot of people think the film's over then when she gets sucked in. I like that that's sort of just like the start of it, kind of like a double climax. We get to. I knew I wanted to have her sucked in, but then I knew I also wanted to have that floating kind of end shot. That was the first kind of shot I pictured when I was putting together the film, was that slow motion just floating in the air, with the hair blowing. So I was like, how do I get both of those? Like, all right, I'll have her go in, get sucked in, then gets pulled out, and then comes out, and then back in. So
yeah, I was watching it, and I was like, man, I've seen a lot of horror shorts, but this is so short. I wanted to be like, Travis, what are you doing? This is too short, man. I want to see more.
Yeah.
And then I like
that worked out.
Yeah, and I love how she decided after she got back out of the trunk. I love how she decided to go. She's going to go take care of business. So you see her go get her dad's shotgun, and she's going to all final girl mode, like beast mode, cocking that shotgun, getting ready to take care of some business. And you can feel her in fear because she doesn't know what she's going to do. And all of a sudden, she shoots the gun, and you're like, crap. So what happened? Did she get the witch or not? And I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but when she opens the door, that gave me a curveball towards that scene. I'm like, I'm like,
oh, good, yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? Why did it go that way?
Yeah. I mean, the some people, are like, oh, I knew that was going to happen, that thing. But I knew that half people would and half people wouldn't, and that's great. I just wanted to make sure that the visual sort of shock at that point was the second thing that could come in and get them in that scene there.
Oh, it was.
So did you
go ahead?
So, well, you had asked me like how this started. I just want to mention, that whole trunk, her getting sucked into the trunk.
Yeah.
I mean, that I got to tell you that right off the bat, that was my Army of Darkness getting sucked into the Necronomicon in the grave in the cemetery scene. Like I was like, I gotta have this. I've always loved that scene. There's something about the hinting at some strange world in there. We don't get to see in there, but it's almost like the Oscar the Grouch Sesame Street. Like, what is down there? I love that stuff. So that was a big inspiration. The film started. I'm rambling here, but I'm sure that's fine. We're on a podcast.
Yeah.
The film I originally intended it to be a lot more Army of Darkness or Evil Dead. I say Army of Darkness. It's the first one in the series I saw, so it's just kind of stuck with me more. I mean, obviously, Evil Dead 2 is, I guess, arguably a better film. But anyways, I was moved by Army of Darkness back in the day. But the film was supposed to be a little bit more of a funner, in-your-face Army of Darkness thing. And as I was putting it together, it started feeling a little bit more serious and a little bit more serious. And I was like, I kind of like the way this is going. We've got some fun here, but it's also kind of moody and atmospheric. And yeah, it sort of came together like that, just in the process, not intentionally, if I'm being honest.
That's pretty good. I like the ending, so I'm gonna ask you how you did the whole ending thing. You have the part the trunk opens up, you see the witch, she grabs the girl, and you see like this bright phantom light, like a paranormal light, shooting straight up with her, and you see her hair blowing, and then she gets the demonic black eyes staring up in this bright light, and then you see her like slowly getting sucked right into the trunk. How'd you do that with all that bright light and everything, and how her eyes turned demonic?
Yeah, so that the eyes were just some visual effects stuff. I do motion design and visual effects kind of as my job, so I have a bit of chops there. So I could get the black eye thing. Like, at this point she's been taken over and she's going into whatever world this is. So the lighting was practical. We had that on flickers and everything, and we were shooting in slow motion, so it was a little bit more ethereal happening in that moment. I added a bunch of stuff in post, all the particles flying around and everything, just to make it more, windy feeling. And it was just like a combination of shooting those shots. I mean, when she's looking up at the camera with the black eyes, she's just standing on the ground. But just the way we shot it, close enough to her and out of focus in the background. And once it's chopped together in the edit, it all works. Just some simple tricks, actually. It just all came together, a mix of practical and post stuff.
Yeah, that was real creepy. That look on her face was creepy. I knew there was something going there. I was like, oh no, now she's going to get possessed. She's going to get sucked into the trunk somewhere. You don't know where she's going. At the end of the film, you left it like a cliffhanger. So, are you going to make this into a full feature horror film? Or are you going to do some more continuations and see what happens to her?
So I don't have plans as of right now for a direct feature kind of adaptation, but I definitely have. I'm working on a feature script that has a trunk in it that operates very similarly. So it's kind of, I've mixed two feature ideas together. So It's kind of like the trunk is half of it and this other idea is the other half. So yes, the trunk will live on in some way, not a direct feature adaptation, but
I think that's
it will be used.
Yeah, I think that's kind of great, using the trunk for like different stories,
Mm-hmm.
Because you got like all kinds of different anthology movies out there. I think that'd be kind of cool. Use the same trunk, different people and different consequences, and get a little bit more nastier and bloodier and gorier. Gorier the better.
Yeah.
Or
I'd love to go down into the trunk and see what's going on. What world does this lead to?
I would love to know the origin of the witch, how she became part of the trunk, and in that mystery world.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, so one of the things I consciously like doing with my films is, like, I like to be vague and ambiguous, but, like, hinting at larger worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I don't know the answers. I don't think you actually always need to. But I want to create something that people can put together a whole bunch of pieces in their own way and have different interpretations, And yes, I have my interpretations of the story that are not necessarily on the screen, but I just really like hinting at worlds beyond what you're seeing, just getting that feeling of something bigger, a bigger story, a bigger universe, without having to actually show it. So that was the inside of the trunk. And I mean, the shot where she's looking into the trunk and the camera pulls back.
Yeah.
That for me was like, that was another early shot, and in post, it depends on where you're watching it. It's pretty dark in the theater. You can see it. I don't know if you saw it, but as it's pulling back, you're seeing roots and things. And,
I've seen. Yeah, I saw that. So,
yeah.
I also loved the terrifying music score in the film too. I kind of thought it was like a character part of the film in certain scenes. Who did the score on that? That was a great score.
Yeah, so that was Bex Worley. They're fantastic. They worked with me on my first horror short that I did, Dead House. Quick plug: my last two horror shorts are also on Alter. If you wanted to check them out, the one I just did before this is called The Silent Lay Steady, and it's like a period piece, more moody thing. And then before that was Dead House. So they worked with me on Dead House, and they're fantastic. They've worked on a ton of stuff. I just I can't get enough of their work. I hope that's a long relationship. Yeah.
Oh, that's good, because I really enjoyed the score, because I'm a fan of film scores. Because it helps to make the certain moods in the film too. If it's like a drama or if it's like a horror, sometimes I think it's like a character, and it really helps out in certain scenes. Where you get all pumped up to see what's going to happen next, and I just love added the music into it, especially in horror films.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the music is, it's like at least 50% of it for me, honestly. And not even as a filmmaker, but as a movie watcher, the scores just do so much for the emotion, for fear, for any kind of movie. So when I'm writing, when I'm coming up with shots, I am always listening to movie scores all the time.
So
you're just listening to something, and it's like, oh, I could picture this happening here. And I'll make a note, like, this track from, and it could be anything. I could be listening to like, Hans Zimmer or something more obscure, and I'll just make a note like, oh, picture someone, getting sucked into a trunk during this part of the song.
So, what's some of your next projects? Do you have another project you're working on right now?
I am working on a feature right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping that the next project will be the feature. If it takes too long to get that kind of actually get the money needed for it into development, there could very potentially be another short in the middle there. But I'm trying to focus on getting the feature done. Low budget first feature. So I think I can do it. I think we got some connections established at this point that it just might be doable. So I'm trying desperately to finish the script.
So you also submitted the trunk out to a bunch of film festivals. How did it do well with the horror audience?
It did great. People seem to really like it. I think it's the right type of film, especially to play to a theater audience. It's just, it feels like a lot of fun. we won a couple awards. We got some best scares and a couple best horrors. So that was pretty cool.
So, at some of these festivals, did you go sit in with the audience to see what their reactions was and what you were thinking?
Yeah, I couldn't make it to too many, if I'm being honest, just budgetary wise. But I did sit in a couple audiences during, and that's just a fantastic experience. It's just so much fun. I end up actually kind of tuning out the audience. I'm like enthralled with the movie myself. It's like, oh, awesome! This is so cool. It's always cool. I mean, it's something you get to see on a big screen, and you're surrounded by people. It's cool. I don't think you ever really get used to that.
That's pretty cool. So, how did Alter get your short film? Because they usually get some really good short films.
Yeah, well, so like I said, this is my third film featured on Alter. So we've developed a bit of a relationship now. So I was in contact with them before I released it, and sent them a copy, and they were like, yeah, we'd love to feature this one as well. It was pretty, I gotta say, develop the relationships when you can, because that's a great platform. They've got a lot of dedicated horror fans on that platform, like primed and ready to go. And after the release, I try to spend a couple days just cruising in the comments and answering as many questions as I can. And, it's a dedicated group, and they're pretty good over there.
Yeah, and they're pretty vocal over there, which I totally respect, because I read some of the comments too, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to please everybody.
Yeah.
Some of them you just got to scroll past.
Exactly. So, since you're a big Evil Dead fan, did you get a chance to see Evil Dead Rise?
I have not. I've been busy with stuff lately, and I don't want to be distracted. So I might be going this weekend. I think check it out for sure.
Oh my, you're gonna like it. You're in for a treat, man. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody, but that film was a fun, bloody ride. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. I've been hearing. I've been purposefully now not looking at anything, because I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be good.
So you're sitting there ignoring your friends and social media. It's like, I don't want to see nothing. I don't want to hear about it until I go into that theater to witness it for myself.
Yeah, exactly.
That you said you did 3 films. You did, the second one was like a period piece. You're talking about more like a period piece? Like it was a horror film during a certain period time. What period time was it about?
So kind of like late 1800s.
Okay.
So we shot that one at Black Creek Pioneer Village.
Okay.
In Toronto. So that's kind of like an old a haunting in an old farmhouse type of a deal. So check it out. Check it out. Just look up The Silent Lay Steady.
I'm gonna look for it after I'm done with this podcast to watch it. So when you filmed The Trunk, this is all in your house, right?
Yeah. Again, it was one of those things. Was like, what do I got? I got this old, creepy looking garage.
Yeah.
That was full. I had to empty it to make it look the way it does on camera. But I had an old garage and I had a couple bedrooms and a hallway. I was like, all right, that's all I need. And the backyard of that place, I'm not living there anymore, but the backyard's like a 1 acre property with forest and stuff. So it's all shot on that property. The forest stuff in the beginning, and I mean, other than the driving shots, those were out on the road. But yeah, that was my place, which is nice because you can just go to bed right after everyone leaves.
I think that's kind of cool. There was a film I watched at Horror Hound. It was called Stranded. It was by a filmmaker named Sean Burkhart, and he filmed everything in a big barn. It was like a huge barn where, made it real dark for night and added stuff. So when you watch the movie, you can't even tell it was filmed in a barn.
Yeah.
And when he was talking about that in the question and the answer, I was like, no way that wasn't a barn. He's like, yeah, it was like straightly in a barn. I was like, wow.
And sorry, was it supposed to be like, was the setting a barn, or you're just saying he kind of used the barn as
He just used the barn,
the studio?
Yeah, it's a studio for certain scenes. You couldn't tell.
Okay. Yeah,
it was just amazing. So where can everybody find you on social media?
Pretty much. I mean, I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @Shastman, SHASTMAN, or just, I guess these days you can just search my name, Travis Laidlaw. And that's really it for social media. And my website's travislaidlaw.com.
So for your Instagram handle, how'd you come up with Shast?
Shast man.
Yeah.
That's a long story. It's not really a story per se. It's just
okay.
Back in high school days are sort of I was making movies.
Okay.
That were more in the comedic jackass.
Okay.
That stupid kind of stuff.
Got you.
Our crew was always called Shast, and and I was the only one that went on to continue doing filmmaking out of that group, and I just kind of kept Shast Man as my online moniker, and now I feel like I can't change it, So, Shast.
All right. Hey, this inquiring mind wanted to know. I had to ask you, so I was just wondering if it was, like.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. Just kind of like a nickname that just stuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely, man. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and everybody, thank you for listening to Horror Pop After Midnight.